Here's a short little series of videos teaching you guys how to make the monitor mount, the monitor top clamp, and the monitor lower clamp. It looked like a few people were kind of struggling with this. So here we go. I'm in the Advanced Manufacturing Classroom site. Scroll down a little bit. The first little bit that we're going to work on is the monitor mount. And I open the drawing up here. I recommend you have this open for your reference because I'm going to be referring back to this. It's got all the dimensions on how we're going to accomplish this part. So I'm going to assume at this point you know how to open Solidworks. So Solidworks I've opened here previously. I'm going to do a new part. Okay. And I'm working on the monitor mount for right now. So right now for me, all these are turned off. I recommend at your novice level here, right-clicking on each of those here and clicking on the eyeball makes all of these visible. So again, those are right mouse buttons on these, clicking on the eyeball to show those things. The origin's there. So what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to click on Extrude Boss Base off the Features tab. So any of these features, or excuse me, these tabs that are here, I'm clicking on Features. Extrude Boss Base. I'm clicking on Front Plane. Okay. Start off here. It's now in sketch mode. That tab opens up. You've got these two icons showing you that you're in sketch mode. I'm going to sketch a corner rectangle. You've got these other types of rectangles, but corner rectangle to start is just the easiest to use. Notice how I'm hovering over the origin point right there. We've got a little yellow relation thing we'll talk about later, but going from the origin up and away. And I made a little mistake here to start. You're going to see that my units probably aren't completely right. I'm actually in metric units here. So let me restart this. I'm going to exit out of this sketch. Custom units down here. Inch, pound, second is what I want to be in, and so should you. So that you may have made that mistake too. Inch, pound, seconds is where I want to be. Now starting over again, front plane. Extrude boss base. Come here, click. Come up here. I don't particularly care where I clicked. That was one click and then two clicks over here to get that. Now I'm going to click on Smart Dimension to actually size the rectangle correctly now. So I'm clicking on the vertical line once. See how it highlights orange right there as I drag over it? And then I click a third time. So it was actually one click, two clicks, three clicks to get that accomplished. It's going to be 4.750, and those were left mouse button clicks. Okay, so with there 4.750, I can click the checkbox right there. Where I got that dimension from was that right there, and now I'm going to be working on that dimension right there, the 3.825 value. Alright, so to do this one, notice how I hover over that. Not clicking anything yet. That highlights orange. That's the line that I want. And the other one I want is down here. That's showing up orange. I click one more time. Third time somewhere off over here. And that value was going to be 3.825. So notice that I potentially could have done the same thing. And if I were to try this right now, you're going to see an error that many of you may end up seeing. Notice that I could click on that single line and click one more time over here. I now get this error. This means that it's got too many pieces of information and it doesn't necessarily need this. If you leave this driven, it's going to come out gray right here. It's going to look kind of gray, and we can't change that value because it's what's called a driven dimension. It'll make more sense potentially later. But I don't recommend doing just that single line click and then coming out here anyway. There's some things that can get messed up in the long term, so I definitely recommend when you're sizing something like a rectangle, go from one line to the other line and out, one line to the other line and out. To delete this one that I don't need, I'm hitting the escape key. That shows that we've got just a blank cursor. Or you can get back to your cursor by clicking on the select thing up there. I'm going to click once on that driven dimension. And then I would like to move it around like that to make sure, and then I'm hitting the delete key on the keyboard, and that actually deletes that thing away if you ever need to do that. So you could do the same thing. I'm clicking and holding and dragging that, and now it gives me this here. If you just clicked once on it, it's going to want you to alter that value, Then if you hit enter, that's not good. So it's actually a click, hold, drag, and then you could either delete that, or you can even right click on that and go delete to get rid of that if you wanted to delete it. But that's actually the value that I want. The other thing over here, I'm going to click one more time on this. So yeah, I didn't want that. So kind of click and hold, move it a little bit. If you want to change this to show all the digits here, the way that we can do that is off of this here, document precision, tolerance precision. If I click down there, that changes that to a 3-value place. There's a setting you can do in the background that will default everything to 3 decimal places, which I kind of recommend, but we'll cover that at a different point. So with that, I'm clicking out of the sketch, and since we started off by this feature by doing an extruded boss, clicking on the extruded boss base, when you exit out of the sketch, it's going to immediately launch in to ask you, well, how thick do you want to extrude that particular sketch? And I'm going to type in 0.370 because that's the dimension thickness. I'm going to click check there. And now I have an actual rectangular base feature. So the value where I got that thickness from was right there. All right, so that is the most base feature. Now, we don't have to necessarily click on an existing axis plane in order to create another sketch now. So I'm going to actually do this. What I'm going to be creating is this circular, what would be called a boss feature right here. That thing right there. So that is an extruded boss. But I'm going to get to it in a slightly different way. I'm going to start now. I'm clicking on this face to start. Now notice that I'm not on the Features tab right now. I'm actually on the Sketch tab, and then you have this ability to click on Creates a new sketch or edits an existing sketch, and I had previously selected that face right there. So it automatically then launches into sketch mode, but on that face. All right. So now I'm going to do one other tricky thing here, and I clicked on this display view or orientation. And I always like going normal to, and notice that it says normal to or control 8 on your keyboard. It has its description right there. So I'm actually going to click on that right now, and that makes me go perpendicular to that. This other icon right here, zoom to fit, I kind of already got it centered up. Well, I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard and the center mouse button to pan over and do that. Alright, so I am in sketch mode. Clicked one more time to get rid of that blue highlight. Now, we could just kind of start launching in by sketching a circle somewhere in the center here and get ripping there. But I'm actually going to take a little bit more metered approach, and I'm going to click on centerline here. I'm actually going to create a construction geometry because what's implied in this design is that these circles are actually centered and symmetric about the center of that rectangular shape. Okay. And with that, that would be called design intent. I'm going to actually create some construction geometry that's going to help me always maintain that relationship no matter what. If I decide to grow that rectangle bigger or smaller at some other point, I always want this to be on center. So notice how I went over that. That little icon right there means midpoint. This icon, as I drag across, goes now coincident. That's what that little icon, that yellow thing that just popped up. It's horizontal and coincident, that line. I'm now going to double click, and now I've got what are 2 center lines, and how I got to center line was that right there. Okay, and it's also going to show for construction, same thing. But now I've got these construction or center lines going from the midpoint on that line to there, midpoint there to there. So that always geometrically is going to lock in that that point right there is the center of my rectangle. Now I'm going to come in and do this circle thing. I'm going to do a center point circle. And guess what? Now that I do this, I know that I'm dead on center. And I'm going to do another circle concentric to that one on that point. And now I have always got 2 circles dead on right there. And if you somehow missed, if you created a circle even off over here somewhere, I'm going to hit escape. Notice that you can actually so long as these items are blue right now, you can actually modify them in ways. This one's actually locked in about that center point. That's what those things are, is relationships locking it on center. This one right here, however, is free to float because it's not locked to anything else. You can also change the size by clicking and dragging on the circumference. But what you can also do is I'm clicking and dragging this. Notice how it went there. That would snap to be on that circumference there, but I'm still holding down my left mouse button and I'm dragging over here, and now I'm releasing, and that dropped that circle onto the center point here. So I literally clicked and dragged and held from the center point, and now all I can alter about these things, I can't move these now because they're locked in, but I can alter the diameters. And now I could click on Smart Dimension there, but I'm going to show you this other cool thing that Solidworks calls a mouse gesture. I'm right-clicking with my mouse. I'm holding down the right mouse button right now, and now I'm actually moving my cursor up slightly. And now it gives you this menu thing that, oops, that's a circle. That would actually start sketching a circle right there. That would start sketching a rectangle. But what I really wanted actually is Smart Dimension. So I'm actually going up top there a little bit. Oops. That didn't take, it still got the circle icon on there. But now I moved right mouse up and then released going in that direction, and wow, it got Smart Dimension for me right there with a mouse gesture. I'm going to click on that. That value needs to be actually 2.5 inches. And this one right here needs to be 3.37 inches. So if you were confused on where that was, excuse me, that value and that value. All right, so we've got those two. Notice how the sketches were blue before, now they are black. They are locked in place. They cannot be moved. They are fully constrained. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this sketch. Notice that we have sketch 3 here. I'm going to show you now. Many times I've seen people get to this point and go, oh no, what do I do? How do I extrude? Why isn't it giving me anything? Well, you've got your sketch. If you were to click on Extrude Boss Base right now with nothing else highlighted, I've hit my escape key, so nothing right now is highlighted at all or selected in the graphics area. I'm going to click on the Extrude Boss Base from the Features tab. Now it's asking you, select either a plane or a planar face or edge on which to sketch the feature cross-section. Well, we don't need that now because we already have the sketch. So the second option is an existing sketch to use for the feature. Well, guess what? This thing here is called the feature, like the feature manager flyout or something like that they call you. If you click on that triangle, so left click on that, and come down to sketch 3 and click on that now, from there, now it's realizes, okay, you want to extrude that sketch, and now it's asking, well, sir, how far do you want to extrude it? And in this case, it is 120 thousandths of an inch deep that I want to extrude that. I click OK, or check right there. I click one more time, and now we've got our boss extruded up. And so that was this dimension right there. Okay, so that's the first bit on this part. I'm going to save this now. I would save this. Yeah, I've got my SolidWorks curriculum folder. I like where that's going to. So I would do, I'm going to call this monitor mount. And I'm putting my name next to it, Mr. Foreman. Cool. Now I would click save. Notice that that actually changed there. Up in the top there, I always get uncomfortable when I walk around the room and I see you guys there with a big asterisk right next to it, or generic part number. That means you hadn't saved. You're walking a tightrope without a net. So there we go. First little bit of this part.